Hello, everyone. So today I am going to be talking about the kink and BDSM community. Okay, so the reason I chose this community was to get more education for myself because as a practicum student, I see a lot of different varieties of people and a lot of different people in general. So I definitely need to educate myself more on this community just because I do see some people who do identify in this community. And so learning about the misconceptions and being able to educate others when something might come up, or like just an opportunity to educate others in general. And then, of course, like using this information in my counseling sessions and, practicum and internship. So, speaking to my own identities, I identify as panromantic demisexual. Um, and right now I'm in a heterosexual relationship. I am 23. I identify as white with, an unexplored European background. And then I am more spiritual than I am religious at this point. But yeah, just understanding like where I'm coming from and my own identities within this community because I don't necessarily identify with this community. But definitely learning more about like my own privilege and understanding that, and seeing other clients that might identify as being within this community. So the first challenge that I found for this community was abuse and coming forward with like sexual abuse victims and being scared to come forward with any situations that they've had when they do identify in this community. And again, this isn't for everyone, just, some of those people. So in the Barker article, it said they were arguing that in defending against accusations of abuse, BDSM communities had prevented people who did have experiences of abuse from speaking out. And they were mostly speaking to anti-porn feminists and how they had been like pushing people into thinking more about like safe words and consent and just like not completely understanding that terminology. And again, by feminists who are anti-porn and more religious feminists in general. And so this led to more like of a deep dive into the safe words and the use of consent within the BDSM community so that others can understand outside like more of what is going on. And then they kind of crack down on creating a stricter consent within the community and more of a no means no, which in the next part of the article they did state more on like a no means no version of consent, whereby anything is okay unless the bottom submissive says no or gives a safe word. So having more of those safe words in place so that that no means no really does mean no means no and allows more people to come forward when that has been broken and to feel more comfortable coming forward. And this really allowed for the community to kind of reform itself into more of a safer place for others. The second challenge I saw was something that I feel a lot of other communities might have the same problem with, and this is distress from the outside and feeling that internalization of like expression of their sexual expression and then facing like stress and shame from outside the community. And so the article that I found for this one stated many individuals who practice kink may face stigma and or internalized shame based on societal judgment about these behaviors, which may contribute to feelings of distress. So really just feeling like pushed into not being able to express themselves, which again I feel like a lot of other communities do face. And then especially being reluctant to disclose that information and those details to a counselor who might be able to help more in that case. And so being able to explain that to a counselor and give that, sort of identity and get that in the room to like talk about with a mental health professional or, someone who might be able to help them with that sort of thing. And then feeling like the stigma from that. Article 3 talked about exploring trauma and expression, and it was really an article that was speaking against kink and BDSM being re-traumatizing for people who have trauma and are in that community. Because a large portion of people were arguing that being in BDSM would be traumatizing for people with trauma, if that makes sense. And then, like, it brings up those thoughts of that past trauma, which they sort of rebutted with kink-based stigma erroneously suggests that BDSM interests are abnormal and perverse. Thus, the present study provides evidence to suggest that kink is not merely normative, but given certain conditions can be perceived as curative for survivors of early abuse. So being able to provide a recovery and like a not complete recovery, but an outlet to express like early abuse and make it more normative and healing, actually. And then this sort of challenge paved a path for breaking down like other myths and misconceptions for other communities as well as their own. So some of the intersecting identities that I was able to identify would definitely be sexual identity versus sexual expression, and being able to sort of I have that idea of like identifying your own sexuality versus the way to express that, and maybe some confusion about like how to express that but also like wanting to have that identity, which that one's a little more confusing. And then religion versus sexual expression and sexuality, because I know that's a big thing, especially in the LGBTQ plus community. And in some cases, maybe facing tension with family because of religion versus being able to like express yourself and explore that side of things in your sexuality and your sexual expression and how you want to do that within the community. And then ideas and beliefs someone might have, and how it might counter when they express themselves or wish to express themselves in that way. So the first theory that I found to sort of bring in work with would be person-centered theory, and that is because it has a huge belief around like the client knows what's best for themselves. So also like trusting the client and knowing they will get comfortable, and when they are comfortable enough to sort of explore that. And so I found this article which really hit home on it. Clients who identify as queer kinky have reported reluctance to seek mental health treatment, even for reasons unrelated to these aspects of their identities, as they are fearful of experiencing bias or discrimination from mental health professionals following disclosure of these identities. And so really being able to understand that when someone is ready, they will come forward and they know like what path is best for themselves if they do bring it forward, and not really like pushing them into anything that they're not comfortable with, so that they do feel more comfortable disclosing information with you. The next one I found was existential humanistic theory, and this also has a twist at the end, which I will bring in, where they also brought in Maslow's hierarchy of needs and some other theories, making it existential positivic humanistic theory. So the first one, just existential humanistic theory. The first article I found for this stated the existential basic aspects of being human are centered around ideas like our ability to be self-aware, our freedom and responsibility, and the building of our identities. So freedom for expression and really being able to help these sorts of people who identify in this community discover that sense of freedom and sexual expression, like I did bring in later on, and like that autonomy to feel like they can express themselves and disclose that to you, and dealing with that stigma on the outside of the community and sort of building up that sense of freedom in order to express that. So the second part that I found stated, it shines light on the ways that BDSM helps individuals cultivate and facilitate coping with the existential givens in life. So, like I mentioned, like on the outside of things, being able to find that freedom and find coping mechanisms to deal with that stigma and that those feelings of like shame and guilt that come with the outside and being in the inside of the community. And then the last, as I mentioned, the existential positivistic humanistic theory. That article stated an integrated theory of human motivation by drawing parallels between Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Seligman's approaches to happiness, and Kierkegaard's types of despair. And they brought in like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the happiness because building up to that self-actualization and making sure you're getting everything that you need for yourself before you can actually reach self-actualization. And in some areas, like that would mean like mental health and being able to express yourself before you can actually reach self-actualization. So my own strengths and struggles in this topic and in like counseling these sorts of clients is there's always new things to learn about. And so I really need to sit down and research more, especially like doing this really helped being able to look at all this information and learn more about the challenges and struggles. And then there's a lot of misconceptions about this community, and there's just a lot that I don't know. So I feel like a lot of that research would help. And then not identifying in the community, I feel is a big thing because people definitely feel more comfortable with people who are alike rather than people who are not alike, and being afraid of feeling that stigma within the counseling setting, as I've stated in the past. And then understanding more terminology. Thankfully, I do understand a lot of the terminology used in that community. So that is a huge strength, as well as learning about new things. I would count that as a strength too. And then something that I struggle with is imposter syndrome in some of these counseling settings, just because I feel like I don't belong in those settings. And definitely learning more to help decrease that feeling. And then current and future advocacy, I could not find anything like event-wise going on. There's a lot of blogs and other ways that you can learn about becoming an advocate and really learning to like advocate for those communities. Definitely, it's Pride Month, so getting out and being able to be an advocate and an ally for those people, and especially like during parades and stuff, and just getting to learn new things from that community. And that serves as like a learning opportunity as well as a learning opportunity for others to learn and being able to educate and advocate others. And then definitely doing the research to become an advocate for others and providing access and knowledge about like those nearby resources, or if you feel as though you are not the best person to be counseling within this community yet, maybe being able to provide access to maybe a more educated, specifically like sex therapist, and providing those resources to that client so that they feel more comfortable. And that is that. And then these are my references for this project. Thank you.